Well, hey everybody, it's Barry Kleiman. I actually obviously have no idea where you're picking up some of the videos that I've been making on LinkedIn's 26 Most Asked Interview Questions. You may have never seen one before. This could be the first video I've made that you've seen, or you've been watching them all along, or somewhere in between. But either way, what I want to interrupt the programming to bring you this announcement is simply this: regardless of where you are in the process of some of the things that I talk about and try to share with people or whatever is. So I believe this, what I'm about to say with pretty much every fiber of my existence. You may not, and that's fine too, obviously. But I believe each of us is almost always interviewing. And one of the reasons I've been making these videos is to try to provide examples of some of the things that might come at you in a formal interview, and also to make you think a little bit about yourself and who you are. I'm not here to tell anybody what to be when they grow up, or how they should answer certain questions. If you've heard any of my stuff, I hate the interview tip thing. I think there's a formula with which everybody should consider answering questions, including how they answer questions to themselves, which is to be honest and authentic. And you've heard all this before if you've been watching any of these, but try to get context to the question. If someone asks you a question that could be interpreted a bunch of different ways, see if they mean personally or professionally or avocationally or whatever. But I talk about being able to use stories. I'm about to tell you one that backs up my claim of you're almost always interviewing. It's one I like to tell, and is true, and so forth. But I just wanted to go through this kind of quick refresher because, again, I believe you're almost always interviewing. And if you approach your life that way, and if you are intent on displaying yourself to the world as who you are and how you want to be seen, you'll um, buy into the adage, right? So the story I like to tell is I wrote about this in my book. I'll write about it in my new book, Successful Interviewing. But I think the year was 2015, I think. And this was, I read this on Twitter, and it was reported by the BBC News. So there was a gentleman who tweeted out something to the effect of, guy who just cursed me out on the train this morning earlier today just showed up for an interview with me. Awkward. So as it turns out, the gentleman who tweeted was an HR manager at a London-based startup. And earlier in the day, he was riding into work, and somebody tripped over his foot, or he tripped over somebody's foot, and the person who wound up tripping called the person who he thought tripped him or whatever every name under the sun, and some that are uh, uh, beholden of a truck driver, or even a kid from the Philadelphia playground. But in either case, cursed him out every which way on Sunday. And then about 5 hours later that day, the person who did the cursing showed up for an interview at a company. And of course, he was interviewing with this person who he cursed out. Believe it or not, if you want, I would bet you if you rehearsed in your mind, or searched your mind about times in your life that you may have wished you had said something different to somebody at a different time, maybe not as expansive as all the cursing. I can tell you another quick story about a gentleman I know personally. I worked with quite a bit a bunch of years ago, who got hot coffee spilled on his lap at a Starbucks down in Sunnyvale, California. I won't embarrass him and mention his name. He worked at a large capital equipment manufacturing company here in Silicon Valley, and he was just sitting having coffee, and somebody walked by, tripped, and spilled hot coffee all in this guy's lap. Again, he told it to me firsthand. And again, he could have gone crazy. Hot coffee, I don't remember what the temperature of Starbucks coffee is, but it's probably 170, 180 degrees in your lap, in your pants. It's pretty hot, not to mention on your suit. And He could have had the same reaction as the gentleman on the BART train, but he didn't. He was very gracious. And of course, the guy who spilled the coffee was very gracious. And long story short, I know it sounds like a fairy tale, but it's true. The person who um, did the spilling was the CEO of a company, not a competitive company, but a company in a similar business. They both made, again, capital equipment for the semiconductor industry. One actually made the equipment that made the chips, the other made the equipment that tested the chips, but the general manufacturing process was similar. Rewind 6 months after the incident, the guy who had the coffee spilled in his lap was hired by the person who spilled the coffee, who happened to be the CEO of the company. And last I checked, to this day, the person who had the coffee in his lap is still there, and of course, in many levels up in the organization chart. You may, again, I think you're almost always interviewing. You could be at a party for your kids' play, a block party. You could be attending a CYO basketball game. Um, People talk about networking. You could be in any sort of event, but we've all heard the expression "first impressions are lasting." It's kind of true. A gentleman named Tom Waits once said, "How you do one thing is how you do everything." I tend to agree with that. And people judge you, so be that person and be prepared. To be who you who you are, and of course how you want to be perceived in the world. I'm going to decline this call. I apologize. Shouldn't have come through. Um, so anyway, that's why I'm doing this. I want you to think about these questions, and there'll be more coming. And think about how you would answer them, and think about, are they you? Are they authentically you? And how would you bring your answers to light in stories? That's what this is all about. Um, Believe it or don't at your own risk. I'm here just genuinely trying to help and explain to people what I think are better practices and not best practices for this. Uh, it's your life, it's your time. You can do with it as you will, but that's the context of all of these interview questions I'm doing. Or trying to replicate in my LinkedIn 26 most asked interview questions. But even if you don't uh, watch one other video, please understand you're all of us are. I'm interviewing with you right now. You're trying to say, what the hell is this old guy talking about? Is he credible? Does he make sense? Is he babbling? Would I ever want to reach out to him, or do I think he's a complete buffoon? Or gee, that makes sense. Be the person you want to be and learn how to express yourself um, um, with authenticity and again in story form, and try to have conversations with people and be authentic about them. So I'm going to keep doing these LinkedIn 26 most asked interview questions. But if this is the only video of mine you ever see, then I hope it makes sense to you, and I hope you're well. Okay, so thank you. I hope you're having a great day. If you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to me.